welcome back to my channel. My name is Mallory, and in today's video, I am going to be doing a flip through of my reading journal. So I have never done a reading journal before, just not something that crossed my mind. I used to try bullet journaling in like high school, and I just never kept up with it. And then I discovered that something a lot of people do is digital like reading journals, which is done on the iPad. And I, found that really interesting. And so I have my iPad here. And so I thought it would be fun just to try it out because I saw a bunch of spread inspiration that I thought was really interesting. And the other thing that I like about doing it digitally rather than on a paper journal is that it's much easier for the book covers and stuff, because I literally can just like search in Safari the book cover and drag it over into GoodNotes. So that was like one of the big perks of doing it digitally rather than on paper, and it's much easier to fix mistakes or start over if I mess something up. I'm not like ruining pages, which is the other reason that I never kept up with bullet journaling, is I'm very much a perfectionist, and the moment I mess something up, I just don't even want to look at the page anymore, and so it just felt like I could never make mistakes. Normally, I track my reads with a spreadsheet, and I might still do that this year. I haven't quite decided yet, but in the meantime, we're just gonna flip through this reading journal. I pretty much only have just 2025 general yearly spreads and then one for my January setup, because I just don't feel like setting up the rest of the months. But yeah, I did a ton of research and like YouTubing for inspiration, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm very excited to start using it. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna switch over to my desk so you can actually see my iPad and see the setup. Okay, I don't have the best camera setup, so hopefully this angle isn't too poor and the glare on the camera isn't that bad. But here I am in GoodNotes. Ignore the other documents that I have in here because they're not really that important, but this is actually the reading journal. And it's at this moment that I've realized that I do not have a cover page on this, but it's fine. I feel like I see a lot of people do covers for the reading journals. I am just not like a very artistically inclined person, you know what I mean? So what I have here is kind of the best that you'll get out of me. I'm not a very artistic person. Any like decoration and detail in this journal is from stickers, and even with that, I don't think there is. But as you can see here, my first spread is my series tracker. So the way I saw a lot of people do this spread differently, where they just named the series and then just put a little box for the number of books in the series. But personally, I like seeing all of the book names in the series as I'm reading the series, or at least looking at it. So I like this setup a lot better. And as you can see from this key up here, if it's fully colored in, I've read it. If it's half colored in, I have read it and also own it. Then if it's a slash, then I own it but haven't read it yet. So I'll just do a quick run through of the series that I'm currently in the middle of. And the series tracker only covers series I have at least read one book from, because otherwise this would be pages upon pages of series that I just want to read eventually. But we have the Simon Snow series, the Carls, Rose Hill, Rebel Blue Ranch, The Good Brothers, Heartstopper, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, just because the two new books came out in the last 2 years. Assistant to the Villain, Lessons in Love, Ruinous Love, The Kids Quotient, Where Love Meets Destiny, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Arc of a Scythe, Love Through a Lens, Legacy of Gods, Pucking Wrong. And then I have a second page, not fully filled, but this is just the rest of them. Crown of Feathers, The Gilded Wolves, Perks and Benefits, Dirty Air, Dream Harbor, Carval, Windy City, Ember Quartet, and Pretty Little Liars. Next is my reading tracker. So it's just basically you're in pixel style. So each month is at the top, and then there's 1 through 31 down the bottom. And the idea is that I will track. So I have a color guide down here. So I'll use my red highlighter if I read pages, so either physical or an ebook, and green if I read an audiobook, and then a little dot if I finished a book. And then on the right side are my intentions for the year, like my reading intentions at least, because I don't like to call them goals per se, just because I feel a little less bad if I don't achieve them. And I saw someone else do this type of goal setting. I forget who it was, but they set number-based goals, and I really like that idea, and I felt like it kind of challenged me to really think of different things that I wanted to achieve beyond just my reading goal. So here I have a goal of reading 1 translated work, 2 nonfiction books, 3 adaptations, so movie or TV shows that were adapted from books, 4 new genres, and for me that means something that's not a fantasy, romance, or I want to say mystery, but I'm still really new to the mystery / thriller genre, so I don't know if I'm gonna count that yet. It just depends on some of the other stuff. 5 rereads, just because I really have a few books on my list that I really want to reread this year. 6 new authors, because I have a really bad habit of just reading books by the same authors. 7 book club books, and that is the book club / Discord server that I'm in for Sarah Caroli's Patreon. They do a book club read every month, and so I want to challenge myself to read at least 7 of them, because I don't think I read a single one last year. I did join the server in August though, so there wasn't like a ton of opportunity for me to read the other books that year. And then 8 series completed, because I have, as you saw, a ton of series that I'm in the middle of, and I would like to finish quite a few of them. So those are my current intentions at the moment. Next is something that might look a little confusing, and I'm gonna try my best to explain. So what I see a lot of people do for determining their favorite book of the year is a book bracket, where they put their favorite book of each month and do it like a sports bracket style to pit them against each other to figure out their favorite book of the year. Now, I like the idea of pitting your books against each other to figure out your favorite book of the year, but my problem with that was that it felt a little unfair to only say put January and February's book against each other and then that book wins and moves on. I wanted to be able to compare my favorite books of each month against every other favorite book of each month, if that makes sense. So I saw this from Joshi Corin. I will try to link her video down below if I remember, but she does what's called a book matrix, I think. And the idea here is I put letters, I might change the numbers, I don't know, but there's 12 letters, A through L, for one book every month. So the idea here is I'll write down my favorite book in January, here, here, here. So you'll take book A, compare it to book B. Whichever one wins goes here. And then you'll compare A to C, A to D, A to E, blah, blah, blah. And then down here, you will count up however many wins each book has. And then that gives you a better idea of your favorite book of the year, in my opinion. So this is kind of something I'm trying for the first time this year. And so this is something I really liked this idea a lot more than a book bracket spread. And so that's just kind of why I'm going with it for my reading journal. I hope that explanation made sense. If not, I will try to link her video down below where she explains how she uses this. Next is a spread that I'm very excited about. I really like the look of it with all the book covers and like the picture frame border type things. And so this is my 25 and 2025. So these are the priority TBR for the year, because if you've watched my January TBR, you might know I'm a bit of a mood reader. So I don't really like having a prescriptive quote unquote TBR, but I do like prioritizing a group of books that I want to read in the year, just because I forget which books I'm excited about if I don't put them down somewhere. And so in this, I have the first 2 rows are all fantasy, the second 2 rows are romance, and then this last row are mystery or thriller. So we'll go ahead and walk through these real quick. So starting with the fantasy books, we have Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher, which has not come out yet. The Toll by Neal Shusterman, which if you've watched any of my videos, you'll probably know my complicated history with that book, but I am determined to finish that book this year. This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone. This is one I'm a little nervous about just because I've heard really good things about it, but it seems very outside of my comfort zone, but I am determined to read it this year because I don't think it's very long either. Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which is the one that came out in September of last year, and I still have yet to read it. And Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which is like a cult classic fan favorite fantasy book, and I really want to get in on that series because it seems pretty fun. And then we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I am determined to get into Brandon Sanderson this year because he has like a cult following in the fantasy genre, and I figure Mistborn, I'm pretty sure, is his YA series that I think is supposed to be a little easier to get into compared to the other ones. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is my assumption at least. So I want to read that this year. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I blew up all over social media last year, and it would be my first romantasy book, if that makes sense, because I don't really love that genre all that much. Now we're getting into my hopeful romances. Wild Side by Elsie Silver, which is not out yet. Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I cannot believe I'm saying I haven't read this book yet. I have not read any other M. Hen books besides Beach Read and The People We Meet on Vacation, and I'm determined to also read them in publication order because I'm pretty sure there's like cameos from the other characters, so I know that Book Lovers is the next one in publication order, so I'm going to read that this year. I even own it. Heartstopper Volume 2. I've read Volume 1 so long ago and then just never finished the series, and I still have yet to watch the TV show because I want to finish the graphic novels first. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Also have not read an Abby Jimenez book yet. My sister's favorite romance author. Scythe and Sparrow by Bryn Weaver, which is the third book in that series that comes out, I forget when, but it is not released yet. Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This is the only Elsie Silver series that I haven't read yet, and so I definitely want to get into that. The Fucking Wrong Guy by C.R. Jane, which is also a series I want to continue. Passenger Princess by Morgan Elizabeth. This is part of her series. I've not read any of the books in this series yet, and that series is the only 3 books of hers that I haven't read yet, I think, so I definitely want to get to that this year. The Bride Test by Helen Huang, At First Bite by Olivia Dade, and then this last row, like I said, is Mystery Thriller. So Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This was a recommendation from my sister when I was asking her for mystery thriller recommendations. I think she really loves Geneva Rose as an author, so I will hopefully get to that. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and if my sister is watching this, it is very funny because she knows I've mentioned that I don't ever want to read this book because I despise love triangles and romances. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized, this isn't really a romance book. It is a mystery at its main genre is a mystery. So I feel like the love triangle isn't going to bother me as much. And then, you know what? If I read it and I don't like it, I don't have to continue with the series. Flawless by Sarah Shepard, which is the second book in the Pretty Little Liars series. I have not talked about it yet, but I did end up finishing the first book and enjoyed it enough to want to continue, especially because I'm still watching the TV show. And so that book is probably going to get read this month, hopefully. Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, which is the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. My sister said she ended up DNFing this book because she didn't like it, but I'm going to try to give it my own opinion. And Ace of Spades by an author whose name I forgot to look up before filming, and I do apologize because I'd rather just not say it than completely butcher it. And this has been touted as like a dark, like academia Gossip Girl kind of, and I'm very excited about that because I love Gossip Girl. It is like my guilty pleasure show. So the next spread is my new releases page, which is really only filled up for the first half of the year just because you don't really know what the releases are going to be for the second half of the year. But I'm not like in love with this page. I wanted to do something with book covers, but I couldn't figure out a way to make it look okay and still have enough space for at least 6 books. And so this is just kind of how we're going for now. I might add some color to these month titles like blocks, but we'll see. So I'm gonna run through these real quick. Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, The Starlight Heir by Amelie Howard, Out of the Woods by Hannah Bottom Young, and I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang all come out in January. While We're Young by K.L. Walther, The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith, Scythe and Sparrow by Bryn Weaver, First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister, and Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven all come out in February. In March, I'm looking forward to Wild Side by Elsie Silver, They Bloom at Night by Trang Than Tran, Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I will also say I got a lot of these from a Goodreads list of books coming out in 2024. Basically, the way I figured these out is first looked at all of the authors that I've read in the last few years and see if they were coming out with a book this year. And sequels that might be coming out this year, and then I looked up a Goodreads list for basically the rest of them. In April, we have Flirting Lessons by Jasmine Guillory, Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, My Best Friend's Honeymoon by Meryl Wilsner. In May, The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, The Love Haters by Catherine Senner, and It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. In June, we have Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. I'm very excited. That's a sequel to Lights Out. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, and I did not realize that V.E. Schwab was coming out with a new book this year. I am ecstatic. I really need to get caught up with her backlist, but I'm very excited about that book. And then Never Been Shipped by Alicia Thompson. And then I just have one book each for July and then one for September, and that is Rose and Chains by Julie Soto in July, and then Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, which is the third book in that series. So those are some of the new releases I'm really looking forward to, and I will definitely populate more of this half of the list as the year progresses. And so next is a spread that I saw someone on TikTok do, I believe, and it is one of my general goals in life, but especially this year, to really read more diversely, so I created a spread to kind of help me track that. So we have 2 graphs, I guess, basically, but this first one is to track diverse authors, and the second one is to track diverse main characters in the books that I read. So my goals are to track Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQ+, and disabilities. And there's also a color for multidimensional, which basically just means it covers more than one category. The more that I think about it, the more I want to add a category for neurodiverse, just because I am neurodivergent, and so I would like to be able to track that as well. But basically, I'm not keeping track of specific days or anything. I'll just color in a box every time I read a book that covers one of these categories. Next is my monthly statistics page. So down on the left is all of the months. And so every month I want to track how many books that I read, pages that I read, hours that I listen to books, how many physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks that I read, how many books I got from the library, and then keeping track at the end of each month what my current physical TBR is. I might decide later on to track some other stuff, but right now that's where we're at. And then next is the Winter Reading Challenge. So I mentioned earlier that I am in Sarah Caroli's Patreon. And if you are in the Soulmates tier, every season they do a reading challenge. And this is the bingo board for the Winter Challenge. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I did set a reading goal for 2025. So I can go ahead and check that off. But they usually have 3 check boxes that you have to complete and then a bingo board. So this is kind of like my TBR. I don't know if I want to end up changing it to also be kind of a wrap up. I might do a different spread for the books that I actually read. But first, the check boxes is just first read 5,000 pages and complete a series. So I'll read the prompts real quick, but I'm not going to get too into the books because most of these I think are on my January TBR, which I'll get to at the end of the video. But the prompts for the Winter Reading Challenge are written by a woman, bought/received in 2024, holiday cover, read during a readathon, Black author, unread from 2024 TBR, one-word title, part of your 25 and 25 TBR, blends 2 genres, set in a remote location, pink or red cover, a rec from Sarah, the free space, book with a map, romance or romantasy, thriller with a love story, sticker or blurb on the cover, favorite genre, audiobook, animal on the cover, giving a DNF a second chance, a buddy read, predicted 5-star, read by the fire or with a playlist, and a 2024 Goodreads Choice Award winner. So those are the prompts, and I don't think I'm going to set a TBR now. And my goal is each month to first take my books that I pick from my deck of cards TBR and see if they fit anywhere, and then add in more books as needed so that I am reading at least 8 prompts every month, because this will end at the end of March. And since there's 24 prompts, 8 books a month will cover all 24 by the end of March. And so now we are getting into my January spread. So this January header is not something I freehanded. I found a thing on Pinterest that had a bunch of January header ideas, and I just screenshotted it and traced this, so this was not freehand at all. But then another thing that Sarah Caroli's Patreon does is a monthly bingo. So this one, I will go ahead and run through the bingo real quick, books that I am planning to read for each prompt. And this one is a little different than the reading challenge because the reading challenge is 4 points. You're on teams, you'll win. This is just for fun. So a book can cover more than one prompt, whereas in the reading challenge, a book can only fulfill one prompt. So for the January bingo, we have the first 2025 read, which I did start, Delilah Green Doesn't Care, on January 1st. So that will obviously be the book there. Part of a series, so Good Girl, Bad Blood. A new to you author. I've never read an Ashley Herring Blake book, so that'll cover that. Read during a readathon. I started this book during the New Year's Day readathon that they did, so I'm counting that. The Bride Test for the book that involves a sport, because I'm fairly certain that the main male character does boxing or karate or some kind of mixed martial arts, so I'm counting that. I could be wrong, so if I am wrong, I'll replace it. But blue or white on the cover. I am reading A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. Even though it's not fully blue, I'm counting it because most of it is blue. Published in January, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Award-winning, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. And then a debut. I don't know if this is Ashley Herring Blake's first book. I could be totally wrong because I read it somewhere, but I'm fairly certain that she wrote like YA before she started writing adult. So I might have to switch that out for a different book. And then on top of those books, most of those, other than I believe Emily Wilde and How to End a Love Story, were in my January TBR, so you already know that I was planning to read those. But then I have other TBR. I'm pretty sure none of these fit these bingo prompts, but I still want or need to read them. And so those 3 books are Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I'm pretty sure this was in my January TBR video, but I'm also planning to read it anyway because the January book club pick of the month is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, which is the 3rd book in this series. I wanted to read both the books before reading this 3rd one that comes out on the 7th, but Practice Makes Perfect was the only one that was readily available in my library. I've got holds at the library and for the ebook and audiobook, but I don't know if they'll be ready in time for me to read Beg, Borrow, and Steal. I don't even know if I'm gonna get to read Beg, Borrow, or Steal because it's on really heavy like back order and holds for the library and Libby, so we'll see. And then The Project by Courtney Summers was also in my January TBR video. And then Flawless by Sarah Shepard is a book that I am buddy reading with my sister. I'm buddy reading the entire series, so that'll also be on my January TBR. And then we are coming to the last page, which is a calendar. So this is a just basic January calendar, and my idea here is to basically just, at the end of the month, write down each book that I read this month and how long it took me to read that book. That's something I've seen all over social media and the internet for people doing that in their book journal, and I absolutely love it. So that is definitely an idea that I want to keep up with. And so then my actual final spread is just the book review template, I guess. This is kind of the format that I like the best, and I'll just add pages as I need to for each book that I read this month. But I have just like an outline for the book cover, and then I will track the title, if it's part of the series, the author, what format I read it in, and then just my review. So that I'll just fill in as I finish books. And that officially is everything that I've done so far for my reading journal. I might add more, I might not, we'll see. The goal is to do kind of a little update at the end of every month. I want to do an ultimate bookish vlog at the end of each month where I'll kind of maybe fill in these reviews with you or just give you a flip through of what I've added since this last video. But yeah, everything else that I have in this journal, because I know it says 13 of 35, the rest are just placeholders for the monthly cover pages and the calendars. But that is basically everything for the actual stuff that I've finished filling out. All right, so with that is my entire reading journal setup. I hope maybe you found some inspiration or just enjoyed watching my very, very simple and minimal spreads. I copied a lot from other people, my sister, some other people in the Discord server, just got a lot of inspiration from other people. So by no means do you have to have any sort of creative, like artistic talent to do something like this, because trust me, I can't even draw like stick figures. This took me like a good 8 hours in total to do just those spreads because I'm such a perfectionist, and making it on the iPad does help a lot because you have tools that like straighten lines without having to use a ruler, and coloring is a lot easier in my opinion. So yeah, definitely very easy to start, and it doesn't have to be it can just be as simple as just writing out book reviews with, you don't have to have any sort of like layout or anything. Like, this is something I'm doing for fun because I want to be a little more creative this year and a place to track all of my reviews that's not just my notes app. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next time with a new one.